Good everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we have a review on the Spitfire LF Mk. Now this review is going to be a bit different. Not the usual in-hangar stuff, but in the gameplay, as you're probably going to note it. Well, as I'm going to point out. In the Griffin Spitfire reviews, those aircraft were relatively three-quarters spaded at the time of the battle. The Tempest was three-quarters spaded at the time of that battle. And most of the time, I tried to get at least half spaded or three-quarters spaded to show off the performance of an aircraft. However, for this one, you're not getting that. You're getting the very first flight I had in the LF Mark 9 as your review. Quite a shocker, isn't it? Now, why would I do that? Well, no spoilers. You'll see. So, the Spitfire LF Mark 9 is basically what happens when you take a Mark 9 and decide, how can we make this more ridiculous? How about you slap in a Merlin 66 and tune it for low altitude to the point where it can blow the doors off a Mustang at low altitude? And I've even been able to catch an Arado in this thing on the deck. Yeah, that is pretty incredible to sum it up in brief context. Now, again, the only downside to the F Mark 9, other than the fragile nature and the overheat, is the fact that you can't put the 7.7s on it. I mean, I think there's a premium for the LF Mark 9. I think they removed it, but I know there's one in the US tech tree that has it. I would love to swap out these 50 cals for 7.7s, to be brutally honest. They really are the thing I prefer on Spitfires, because the 50s to me just don't pack the punch. They sometimes do, but they sometimes don't, and 303 set more fires, and they're nicer, to be brutally honest. And you get more ammo count as well. So the Spitfire LF Mark 9 is a very well regarded aircraft for being a bit OP, and I can brutally admit that it is OP. This thing is ridiculous. How it's still at 5.7, I don't know. This aircraft could easily go to 6.0, and I would not complain about it. Because this aircraft is ridiculously good, and as you're going to see, a stock LF Mark 9 could smack a G56 or Spade it out the park. It's ridiculous. So the Spitfire LF Mark 9 features the Merlin 66 engine, which, as you're going to notice, it packs quite a lot of horse. Nearly 2,000 horsepower. Yeah, that's a lot of horse, and you got to remember the Mark 9 aircraft, or the Mark 9 airframe, is actually relatively light, and well, it was relatively light for the time. I mean, if you put this engine in a Mark 1 airframe, I wouldn't even want to think. But or a Mark 2 airframe, depends. But that engine really makes this thing go. The power to weight ratio is insane. Now, same as with the Spitfire 14E and 18E, you are going to have problems with your fuel. Because obviously, with this aircraft being able to take 150 octane fuel, I think the Griffins can as well. And basically, this thing drinks fuel like at a ridiculous rate. I've used the same. I'm not going to use the same joke again, but you get my meaning. This thing really does drink its fuel. And with that, to be honest, I would actually trade that because this performance, I don't care how much fuel I'm using. At the end of the day, you don't pay for your fuel in this game, which imagine if that was the thing. But oh, it's simply incredible what this thing can do out the box. And Spaded, I really don't get why this thing is 5.7 still. But anyway, let's move on to a bit more easier sort of thing. So, armament, as I mentioned, two 50 cal guns, 260 rounds apiece, and Espana Mark II cannons, 135 rounds apiece. You get the same ammo count as you do in the Griffin Spitfires. Now, the LF Mark 9 was, well, at least from what I can find in real life, was mostly used to hunt V1 buzz bombs. Because obviously, LF is designation for low fighter. We also had HF Spitfires, which, as you can imagine, is high flight. So, well, well, obviously lower flight, or low flying more like, and then high flying, etc. You can sort of understand why the Spitfires would need to be tuned for that, because obviously we had there was a video that Mark Felton Productions did on I think it was a Spit Mark 9, and I think it went up to like 41,000 feet, which for the time was incredible, to say the least. I think it was like 41,000 feet or something like that. And the Spitfire only could be equipped with 220mm guns, because that's all they could try. If they put 303s in, it would cause too much weight, and if they put in 4 cannons, it'd just be, well, too weighed down. But yeah, like I say though, this aircraft is incredible out the box. And, well, the only ordnance option you get, which I did this for a laugh at towards the end, you only get a single 250-pound bomb. To mainly trigger Bertie and make flight question my brain capacity, I actually carried this bomb to see if it really made a difference on this thing, and to be brutally honest, it really didn't feel it. This thing just did not care. It has that much power, it just doesn't care. I know it says there on the stat card, minus 5.4 miles an hour, etc., etc., but to be brutally honest, I barely felt a difference. This thing still climbs like stink. This thing sort of turns like a zero. Obviously, it's not going to beat a zero, but you get my point. And, well, yeah, this thing is incredible. In terms of how I did with the vehicle, it's an LF. What can I say? Do you want me to actually be like that? 3 deaths, 20 kills, 54 ground units. This thing is probably one of the better Spitfires I've flown, and I can really advise flying this thing. This thing is really, really good. A bit too good, to be pretty honest, but it was like this in real life from what I can find from most of the data, and yeah, it's worth it. So let's get into the battle and let's take a look at what I got up to in the Spitfire LF Mark 9. So as I mentioned, if you've skipped ahead, which to be honest, if you already know what the Mark 9 can do and you're already at this point, I don't blame you, because this battle was the first flight. This was before I teamed up with Flight Sim Test, aka in the comments section, his random name, which I'm I'm not going to say it again because, well, I probably butchered it in the last few Spade reviews that I've recorded, but whatever. So, very first flight, I decided, let's be careful with it. It's Spitfire. I'm going to need to be considerate of it, even though this thing's got a reputation for being a bit OP. So straight away, when you take off, I mean, because of it's taking time to wind up, I was thinking, well, its stock performance doesn't feel amazing, but at least it gets up and goes. But if I just plonk it to 4 times speed, and I was just reading around the cockpit as I usually do, if I just jump it to 4 times speed, it climbs pretty respectably out the box. I've got to give it that. But obviously, because we're going to be here a while climbing, I'm going to put it at 8, because, well, we're going to be here a while. Because I climb quite high in this thing. Now, you do start to lose power at about 6 kilometers. But to be brutally honest, the Germans tend to shit themselves when they see a Spitfire above them, so they kind of make your job a bit easier. So there you go, at least you've got something to think about. So at this point, I spot this K4, and for some reason he decides to pull vertical. I put a good smack into him, but obviously, stock belts, they're not the greatest, but this K4's pretty badly beaten up already. And I decided, well, the lower I go, the better I perform. So let's see. Let's put it in a dive. And you've got to watch your wings on this one. This Spitfire specifically, it's a shit ton more fragile than the Griffins. I never ripped a Griffin. I nearly did rip this Spit. So I'm just getting my aim in and trying to get some shots in. And, well, the K4 isn't really maneuvering all that much, but obviously we're at higher speed where the control surfaces of the Spitfire start to lock up a bit. But as you can tell, this thing dances no problem at all. But luckily the K4 goes down, and I get my first kill. First flight, first kill. Gotta love that. First flight, second kill. Even better. That Dora couldn't really escape anyway, he was low on speed, but you get my point. And at this point, this is where it's going to get a bit messy for both me and my team. Which, as you can tell, I thought I was being fired at by a plane then, but it's not, it's ground fire, it's a AAA truck. And at this point I was thinking, okay, let's get some ground targets, and maybe if we need to, we'll go back in the fight. So I spot these AAA trucks, and I thought, well, I need some points to start spading it, so let's get some points on the board. But obviously I'm keeping an eye out around me, and as it turned out, this is a wise move, because that Marimar, the G56, you're going to want to keep an eye on him. He's going to be a thorn in my arse, and that's putting that lightly. So I took out that AAA truck there and decided, okay, I'm going to reclimb and try and help the team. Because we've got a Giuseppe over here, and obviously we've got the G56. Now, you can still outturn them, but stock, I don't know. I don't think it can, although it felt just fine to turn out the box, so I would reckon you can take a G56 in a turn fight out the box. It certainly felt like it. I did score a hit onto him there with a high explosive round, but it didn't really do much. The G55S goes down, and at this point my team is just crumbling one by one, and it's not looking good for us. We've still got a K4 and a 288 left to deal with. However, Big Beak in his AD4 is going to more than pull his weight. He's done incredibly well. As you can tell, 3 kills. And he's actually going to get an ace at this battle. Which, props to him. If you can get an AD4 to do that, that is incredible. I did once get an AD4 to 4 kills, but the team decided to throw it away for a loss, so there you go. I fired a long burst at the G56 to try and get some hits. I did score a couple, but at that range, these guns don't really do that much damage. They sometimes can, but you really do need the belts for that. So at this point, I decided, right, well, I might as well go and farm a couple more ground targets on the way back, and I might as well, I'll try and get at least one more ground target, I should really say, because there's another AAA truck right there. And then I can rearm, refuel, and get back in the fight, which I eventually decided to do. So I'll just jump us ahead, because well, it's quite a trek back to base, and obviously at low altitude without engine mods, and obviously this being a bone stock aircraft, it's not the fastest thing on the world on the deck. But once you get it spaded, it is incredibly quick on the deck. It's not as fast as a Tempest, but it's still incredibly quick for a Spitfire. So there you go. So the only aircraft we have left is the 84, because the P-47 then decided to get its tail set at 288. And yeah, I decided to land this thing in cockpit view because of how easy it is to land this thing. It's just got so much power, even if I needed to go for a go around, it really didn't matter. So it's down to me, the 84, and the P-59A, who immediately starts farming bots and doesn't notice the K4. So I point out to him, and he's just as dumb as I thought he was. I told him what's behind him, and yet he doesn't know what it is. I just told you what it is. I told you it's a K4. Just run towards us. I swear, this is why I don't trust P-59 players unless they have the name Killer Tigger Jr., because honestly, they are so fucking useless. I've not seen a single good P-59 player since I saw Tigger's replay a while back. And he even puts in chat, "You can't catch me." Well, no shit, you're a jet. He's not catching you unless he's got a dive on. So at this point, we've still got the 288 to consider, and well, the 109 is still important, but because the G56 is higher than me, I decided to go with the tactic of I'll try and catch a K4, which newsflash I can't. Well, at the moment, because obviously stock. And I'll go for the G56. And at this point, the P59 is pretty much acting like a know-it-all. He thinks I don't know the G56 is there. I mean, my eyesight's bad, but not that bad. And, well, let's put it this way. He wasn't exactly the smartest tool in the shed. And that's putting that lightly. So at this point, I bank around to turn the Spitfire around to give my team a hand, because the K4 is actually coming back in, and the 288 has been set on fire. I think he does die to the 84 in a moment. Oh no, the fire went out. Never mind, it's 288 syndrome. I had to make the joke. And at this point, I was wondering what to do. Obviously the 84 is going to gut the K4 in a moment, but this G56 is going to go for the 84. The P59 is not going to back up the 84. I'm at least going to try to. The 288 goes down, thankfully, and the 84 is about to kill the K4 for his ace. But at the same time, we're also going to lose the 84. As you can tell, the 84 is currently behind the K4, and he is tunnel visioned. The classic mistake that most allied players make. Tunnel visioning. And he's running towards the K4's airfield, which he does get his ace, but he had to spray an awful lot to get it. And he's out of ammunition now, and the P59 is going to go for it, which, again, this guy's already been proven to be a bit of a dumbass, and, well, this bit is no exception because he does just that. So now that Professor Moron has gone in to try and take out the G56, I'm just going to skip ahead, because, well, yeah. And, yeah, Ramrod just charged in, didn't care, and just decided, yeah, I'll just charge in and take him in a jet, because I have higher speed, that means I win. No. Now, before I continue here, I'm just going to pause it. What you're about to see is the final engagement. Bear in mind, he's spaded. I'm stock. Would help if the play button actually worked. Just bear that in mind with what I'm about to pull off. He's spaded, I ain't. Now I shouldn't have done this maneuver here, to be brutally honest, but even then, this is where the engagement starts. And as you can tell, the G56 is trying to force it into a climbing spiral. Now I'm making heavy usage of my ailerons here, and heavy usage of my rudder, but this is the only way I can keep with him. And obviously we're going to continue spiraling for about a minute to a minute and a half. And obviously I'm using heavy usage of my ailerons, heavy usage of my rudder, which the ailerons aren't actually moving in the replay for some reason. Now they are. It's weird because I was applying quite a bit of aileron. But as you can tell, the G56 player is trying to outstall me. Which, if he was fighting a Griffin, he'd have done that, and I'd have been dead. However, he's fighting an LF. And at this altitude, this thing still packs quite a bit of horsepower. And obviously I'm keeping a heavy eye on him, because I'm trying to keep him in my sight. And I'm trying to keep him, well, I'm trying to keep the Spitfire above 130 miles an hour if I can, because if I go any lower, I'm likely going to stall. And if I stall, I'm dead. But the Spitfire LF just keeps hanging on, and I was incredibly amazed by this thing's performance. And even though I dropped below 130, which was my safe zone, as you can tell, this Spitfire can still hang on. The G56 at this point decides, okay, let's try this again. But at this point, I've got just enough speed to pull up again and get guns on target. fire a long burst and a 50 cal lands right in the cockpit. Now, if that doesn't tell you what a Spitfire can do, I really don't know what can. Well, the LF Spitfire. This is possibly one of the best Spitfires you can get in the game, and if you haven't unlocked this aircraft and you haven't flown it, you're missing out. Let's put it that way. And if this thing goes up to 6.0 BR, you can blame me or blame anyone else who watches this video and flies it. So there you go. But as you can tell, this thing's incredible. I can highly recommend this aircraft. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys off. I hope you enjoyed today's video, indeed Spitfire LF Mk, and I will see you all on the next one.